Get ready, because we're about to pull back the curtain on what might be one of the biggest cover-ups in the history of science.
Okay, let's start with a quick question for you. Who discovered nuclear fission? You know, the massive world-changing breakthrough that gave us both nuclear power and the atomic bomb.
If you're thinking Otto Hahn, well, that's the official story. He even won the Nobel Prize for it back in 1944. So, case closed, right?
Well, what if I told you that's only half the story? What if the real genius behind that discovery was, well, deliberately erased from history?
And look, this isn't just one person being forgotten. It's actually part of a much bigger hidden pattern, a systematic erasure of brilliant minds from the history books we all grew up with.
See, the thing is, the invisibility of women in science, it wasn't an accident. It's not like they just weren't there, or they weren't making huge breakthroughs. No, this was a reality that was actively and deliberately built.
The historian Margaret Rossiter, she put it perfectly. She called it an intentionally placed camouflage. Just think about that phrase for a second. That's not just forgetting someone. That's a deliberate act of hiding them.
So, okay, if we're calling this a kind of crime against history, how was it pulled off so perfectly? Well, we're going to follow the clues piece by piece and figure out exactly how this whole thing worked.
All right, clue number 1 is all about the most basic barrier you can imagine: locked doors. I mean, before a woman could even think about contributing, she had to get into the room where all the science was happening. And believe me, those rooms were locked up tight.
And this wasn't just one lock. It was layers and layers of exclusion. You had actual laws that just straight up banned women from universities. Then you had these ridiculous scientific arguments claiming their biology just wasn't suited for deep thought. And even if you got past all that, the culture itself just screamed, "This is a boys' club. You're not welcome here."
But let's say a woman somehow managed to bust through all those locked doors. Well then, she faced a whole new danger. And that brings us to clue number 2, the idea theft.
This kind of thing happened so often that it actually has a name: the Matilda Effect. It's this tendency to deny or just flat out give the credit to men for the contributions of women in science. Seriously, it's like the ultimate version of someone stealing your homework and getting an A+ for it.
And you know, this isn't some newfangled idea. The name itself is a shout-out to Matilda Joslyn Gage, a suffragist who was calling this out way back in 1883. She literally wrote an essay protesting how women's inventions were getting patented under men's names. So yeah, this has been going on for a very long time.
Which brings us to our final clue. And honestly, this might be the sneakiest one of all: the erased memory. This is how the cover-up becomes permanent.
Think about it. Even if a woman jumped through every hoop, got past the locked doors, and her work wasn't immediately stolen, there was still one last gatekeeper, the historian. And what happened? Time and time again, women were just wiped from the official record.
And the result of this? It's really stark. Just look at any science textbook. It's almost all men. You get Marie Curie, of course. She's kind of presented as the one token woman, the exception that proves the rule. Which is ironic because her fame sometimes makes every other woman scientist even more invisible.
Okay, so we have locked doors, we have idea theft, and we have erased memories. Now it's time to see how all 3 of these clues come together in one single explosive case. This, my friends, is the smoking gun, and it's the story of Lise Meitner. Lise Meitner was an Austrian physicist, and I mean a giant in her field. Her story is the perfect storm of everything we've been talking about. She literally faced every single one of those barriers, and her incredible, world-changing discovery was basically stolen right out in the open.
So let's just walk through this because it's wild. In 1922, she discovers a super important atomic process. Fast forward to 1938, and she's forced to flee Nazi Germany because she's Jewish. But here's the kicker. Even while she's in exile, in 1939, she's the one who figures out what the data from her old lab actually means. She develops the theory and even coins the term nuclear fission. And then, in 1944, her longtime collaborator Otto Hahn gets the Nobel Prize for it, all by himself.
And get this wasn't a one-off thing. That auger effect she discovered, yeah, it was named after some guy who published his findings 2 years after she did. And nuclear fission, the concept she was the first to actually explain, Nobel Prize goes to her partner. Twice. 2 massive discoveries, and twice her genius was credited to a man. And you know what's even more incredible? The media kind of cynically started calling her the mother of the atomic bomb. But when she was actually asked to help build it on the Manhattan Project, she refused.
She said, "I will have nothing to do with a bomb." Her discovery had been stolen from her, and she wanted absolutely no part in turning it into a weapon.
So now, we're finally starting to rediscover Lise Meitner's story. But this isn't just about going back and correcting some old mistake in a textbook. No, this story is far from over. Because when we bring these hidden figures out into the light, it does something really, really important. It completely changes our idea of what a scientist is supposed to look like. It tells a whole new generation that brilliance doesn't belong to any one gender or background, and it sends a message that your contributions won't be erased.
And that really leaves us with one final big question. We've just seen how the official story of one of the 20th century's biggest discoveries was just wrong. So it has to make you wonder, what else did they get wrong? How many other hidden figures, how many other Lise Meitners are still buried in our history books, just waiting to be found?